In this video, I'm going to teach you how to add a couple of input parameters to an entity model. And like all these entity model tutorials, what we're going to learn here is going to apply to every class that is a subclass of F-entity, which is pretty much every class that you'll ever write for Flame. So it's going to apply to every class that you write. We're going to add to this user interface the ability to specify the min range for the sensor. And we're going to change the class so that the min range value is saved to the Flames database. So if you've watched the videos in the order that is recommended on the website, you've already had an introduction to the user interface and the database code for an entity class. So we'll be able to move pretty quickly and just show you how easy it is to add a parameter. So I'm going to close Forge because I'm going to be doing builds and I'm running Forge within the debugger. And I can't build while it's running. So I'm going to go first of all to the class definition and I'm going to add two variables. And I'm going to call this min range and min range UOM. So I need a variable in my class to store the user's selected value for the unit of measure. And as we talked about in a previous video, our convention is to make these unit of measure member variables, which are character strings. We make them 12 characters long. Then I'm going to go to my sensor class and the class initialization function. And I'm just going to add two more fields to the database record. And really important thing to remember, always change the number of fields here when you modify the database record. This is something that I forget pretty often, and when you do, you load this component, you'll get an error message from Flames. So I've done everything I need to do to get my new parameters written out to the Flames scenario database. Our next step is to change the user interface so that the user can enter values for these new parameters. As we talked about in a previous video, the user interface is defined in the template file, the graphical user interface template file for the class. So here you can see the current definition of the template file. We're going to edit this template file to add a couple of new fields to the user interface. To do that, we're going to make use of a tool that is provided with Flames called the Flames Window Viewer. So if you'll go to your launcher in your project and you'll see an icon there for the window viewer. If you'll double click on that icon, you'll get a window open that looks like this. So I'm going to take my Visual Studio window and I'm going to push it over to the side a little bit so I can still see my template file at the same time that I see the window viewer. And what I'm going to do is make changes to the template file and then display them using the window viewer. And the window viewer does not give me the ability to edit the template file. I still edit it in Visual Studio on my text editor, but it gives me a way to view my template file without having to build any code. So it makes editing very easy and the whole process very, very quick. So the first thing I need to do before I actually load this template file in the window viewer is I need to load a template file that has a window defined in it. This particular template file does not have a window. It just has a bob list, this vertical box right here. And I need a window in order to be able to display this bob list. So the easiest way to get a window is go to the project menu in the window viewer and select this little menu here off of the project menu called create test window.tp. This will create a template file that has just a window in it. So I'm going to select that. And now I'm ready to begin editing my template file. So I'm going to go, and you can go look at where it's going to put it is in the current working directory of the window viewer, which should be your project work folder. So when I browse and add here, what I'm doing, let me see just tell you I'm going to load some template files in the window viewer. So I click this button right here that says Add Template File. And sure enough, in my projects work folder, I've got this file that just got created. So I'm going to double click on that file. So it shows that I have that template file loaded, and it shows that I have a window that's named Test that is visible. That is not visible, but it's loaded in the template file. So I'm going to click just one time on No, change it to Yes, and I get this window right here. So it's blank. There's nothing in it. But this is the scratch pad that I need for defining for viewing my template file definition. So I'm going to place it over here. And now I'm going to go load the template file for my EXM sensor class, which is this template file that I have displayed in Visual Studio. So I'm going to click the Add Template File again, and I'm going to go to the folder that contains that template file, which is Tutorial, F Equipment, F Sensor. There's my EXM sensor, and here is my template file. So I load that up, so it just loaded this guy. And I'm going to click on the window, and then I'm going to click on the Bob list. And as we know from our file, that Bob list is named EXM sensor, so it's displayed here in available Bob lists. I'm going to attach it to this window. When I do, that Bob list gets displayed in the window. So I now have a way to look very easily at the changes that I make to my template file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another field in this window right above max range that allows me to set the value for min range, this new parameter that I just added to my class. To do that, it's very easy. I'm going to take the definition of the field for max range and the definition of the field for the unit of measure, and I'm going to copy it. And then right above this, the definition for max range, I'm going to paste my new information in there, my new statements. So just make another whole copy of it. So now I've got two fields that are called max range. Of course, that's not what I want. I want to change the this field to be min range. So I'm going to search for this and change the label to min range. I'm going to change the field to which the field in my structure that this field in the template file refers to. I'm going to change it to refer to my new min range parameter. And then my min range UOM is going to be associated with this new drop-down field that I added. So now I need to change the name of this field right here. So I changed this drop-down field to be named min range UOM. And I put that name on there so that I could refer to it in my new min range field. So the UOM field for min range is this field right here. So my max range fields are still there. My min range is here. So the last thing I need to do is change the location of this field. So the one I copied was on row 3, and I'm going to change it to row 2. And I'm going to put the UOM field on row 2 as well. Now you notice that in this template file I didn't have anything on row 2, and that's because I had this tutorial in mind when we created this file. So it's possible that you can have rows and columns that are blank, and Flames in the graphical user interface system will just close up the blanks. It doesn't matter that there's blank rows and cells. If I wanted to insert more fields in here above this max range, so I needed another row, that would mean that I would need to go and just increment the value of the row values here. So I need to make sure that I don't have any fields that are occupying the same cell. It works, but you just get the labels overwritten, and you can't really use the user interface when you do that. So before I actually try to display this, one thing I like to do is I like to compile this file right inside of the Visual Studio environment. If the file has syntax errors in it, I'm going to get errors when I try to display it right here, and it's not as easy for me to find the errors as it is when I compile it in Visual Studio. So I'm going to do Control F7, which is the compile command, and there's a rule in Visual Studio defined by the Flames solution that will compile this file, and it succeeded. Now let me just show you what happens if I have a syntax error. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to take that semicolon off, and I'm going to do a Control F7, and it's going to tell me that, oh, I see you can't see the whole thing, so let me move it over. It tells me that I've got an error with this IO record statement, and it says it's on line 52. Well, I can just click on that line. It'll take me right to the line, just like Visual Studio does with C and C++ files. It shows me where it is, and it found that statement, and it didn't like it because there wasn't a semicolon on the previous statement. So I fixed that. I'm going to do another Control F7. It builds just fine, so let me push it out of the way just a little bit here so I can see it. And then I'm going to go here to the window viewer and simply select reload. When I do that, it's going to go reload all these template files and redisplay the window. So there it is. There's my new min range field. So I can make sure that I have everything placed and I like it the way it is before I try to rebuild the Flames application and test out this new window. So I'm done with the window viewer. I can close it. And I realize that I need to do one more thing before I actually try to test this in Flames, in Forge. I realized that I skipped a step. So what I did was I forgot to specify the default values. And when we're putting in new parameters that are not present in a data set, that older versions of the data set, we want to make sure to specify new default values for these new parameters. So I'm going to copy these lines right here. And I'm going to make the default value just be, for min range, just be 100 meters. So I want the default unit of measure to be the unit of measure associated with meters. So I can go over here to my template file, and meters is, as we've talked about, is 1.0. So I want the default unit of measure for my new value to be meters. So I put the string in there for meters, and I set it to 100, so it's 100 meters. Notice that the default value for max range is still in meters, because internally I'm always working in meters. Flames does the conversion to different units of measure automatically. So since I wanted the default unit of measure for this to be kilometers, I specify the string for kilometers down here for max range, which is this value right here. And Flames will automatically convert my internal values, which is in meters, to kilometers. So now that we have finished everything, we've changed the database record, we've specified the default values, we've changed the template file. Now we're ready to do a test. And I highly recommend that you do this test anytime you change an input parameter. So here's our new sensor user interface, and you can see it's just the way we designed it. So, and you can see that my default value has come up here. It's 100 meters, just like I specified, so that looks good. But the test I want to do is I want to make sure that these new values are being read from the screen correctly, and they're being saved in the database, they're being read from the database, and they're being put back on the screen correctly. So I'm going to define the first sensor. And I'm going to make this 555, get a new data set, and I'm going to say accept. Oh, okay, so this is where our configuration, I have to put something in the data processor field. So I'll just put AAA. So there's my values for the first sensor. The second sensor, I'm going to make sure I change these values to something else. And we'll just change this to miles. Let's put it in feet. So there's our second guy. So, and I'm going to change, just for kicks, I'm going to change that. I could change all these other ones, and you can go through and do that if you want, but theoretically you're starting with the model that's already been tested and all those values all already work. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure this user interface is working. We're just going to click back and forth on these guys and see if my value of min, range, and feet is changing the way that I sent it, and it is. So that means the display and retrieve methods are working correctly. So now I'm going to save this data set. I'm going to call it test, and then I'm going to drop it. So now there's no sensor information loaded at all. Then I'm going to go back and reload it, and I'm going to click on these guys again and make sure that those values that I entered come back. So that means that the saving of these values in the database and reading those values back out of the database is also working correctly. So it only takes just a few seconds to do that test, but I recommend you do that. Create two instances of your class, two objects, put them in a test data set and do this little exercise to test it. Just so we don't clutter up our database, I'm going to go ahead and delete that data set. It's still in memory, but I'm going to exit Forge and not save, so it'll be gone. And that concludes this tutorial. Now, it's taken quite a while for me to explain things along the way, but you can see here that if I wasn't talking, it would have taken us just 2 or 3 minutes to change the user interface and to change the database parameters. So thank you for listening and watching, and thank you for using Flames.